Hey everyone! Don't mind my freaking glasses, I just realized that they were broken. I was trying to do this to adjust my glasses like this, and the lens moved and the rest of my glasses didn't, so that's cool. Oh gosh, this is so disorienting. So guess what I'm going to be doing right after I film this. At the thrift store the other day, I picked up this like marble platter thing, serving tray, I guess, and I had the idea to make like a side table with it. It ended up being kind of a fail. It wasn't the best, and I kind of scrapped that idea and put the serving tray thing away and didn't really look at it because I didn't know what to do with it. But finally I came back to it and decided, instead of using it as a whole piece, that I would try to disassemble it and figure out where to go from there. So here it is. I ended up actually taking it apart. The reason why I wasn't like holding it the way you're supposed to hold it just now, like with the handles, is because it's actually taken apart. I took the back off of it, which ended up being a lot easier than I thought it was going to, and the marble just came right out. So I kind of reworked my idea of having it be a side table. Oh my gosh, this is so annoying. So I decided to go a little bit shorter and do a plant stand. I figured the top heaviness of it really wouldn't matter if it was like a little bit shorter. It's probably like half the size of the initial table that I was trying to make, so that helped a lot. And it kind of split that serving tray into two separate projects, which is also pretty cool. I ended up just using the marble for the plant stand, and then the other half of it, I kind of have an idea in the works, but it's in the works, so I'm not sure. I don't want to like talk about it too much in case it just goes in a completely different direction. But anyway, so if you haven't been able to tell, today I'm going to be showing you how I used that piece to make a marble-topped plant stand. So let's get started. You'll need 3 3/4 by 36-inch square dowels, a length of round dowel. I think mine was about 1/4 of an inch in diameter, or you could use wood dowel pins, a drill with a bit that's the same size as your dowel or pins, a saw and miter box, sandpaper, wood glue, a hammer or mallet, paint, and a round top, about 13 to 14 inches in diameter. I'm using the marble that I just showed you guys, but you could totally just cut some wood, like MDF or something, into a circle instead, if that's all you can find. And obviously you can size up if you want, but you'll probably have to adjust some of the measurements. Cut one of the dowels into 4 8-inch pieces, and then cut 2 of the dowels in half so that you have 4 18-inch pieces. If you're using a small round dowel, cut 8 about 1-inch pieces, and then sand the ends to give the edge a little bit of a bevel. One thing you can do is to stick the dowel pieces into your drill while you sand. This makes it go by way faster. Just don't hold on to the sandpaper as you do this because it can get kind of hot. So the plan is to have these short wood pieces fit together like so. You want one of the edges of the dowel to line up with the edge of the circle, and the other to hang over slightly like this. You don't want it where one of the edges lines up and then the other side is inside of the circle. That will make the top too big whenever you attach the long leg pieces later. The dowel pin pieces are going to be used to hold everything together, but first we have to drill the holes for them to go into. To help mark where these spots will be, and to help keep the drill bit fairly straight, I made a little jig using some scrap wood. This isn't necessary, it just makes things a bit faster. Using a scrap of the square dowel, I found the midpoint, marked down it, and then from one of the edges, I marked in half of the width of the dowel. Then I drilled a hole in this spot, trying to keep it as straight as I could. Then I took some scraps of thinner wood and nailed them to each side of the dowel piece. On the short pieces, I drilled a hole in the middle on both ends. If you're not using a jig, just make a diagonal line from point to point, making an X. Then the midpoint is where you drill. Clamp the wood to a table and drill. Every so often you should pull the bit out all of the way to clear the wood scraps. If you don't, the wood may shift from all the extra junk in there. You'll see I have a piece of tape on my bit. I drilled my first hole and then dry fitted one of the dowel pieces in, and then placed that against one of the leg pieces to see if it would be at a good depth. Once I got it deep enough, I used tape to mark that spot. So then when I drilled the rest of the holes in the ends, I knew exactly how far to go. When all the holes were drilled, I placed them on the marble again, and then once I had everything arranged and lined up perfectly, I marked where one of the wood pieces butted up to the other. Then I stacked them together side by side and drew the lines up and down each of the pieces. I also made sure to mark which end was the outside and which end was the inside. The outside ends are going to be the ones that fit into the long leg pieces, and the inside edges are going to be the ones that butt up to each other. I placed them down in the pattern again just to double check if I did the marks correctly. Once I determined that everything was correct, I stacked them together again and then marked the midpoint of the marks like so. Then I used the jig that I made to drill the holes. I simply lined up the mid mark to the hole and then drilled. My aim was to go about ½ an inch into the side of the wood dowel. Again, I used tape to mark the drill bit. If you're using a jig like me, just make sure you account for the width of the jig when you're marking the bit with tape. Next, drill into the leg pieces. For me, I wanted the marble top to only slightly sit below the ends of the leg pieces. I measured how thick the marble was, and then I added like 1/8 of an inch, and then marked that on one edge of the leg piece. So here I messed up, and I lined that mark up with my jig and drilled into that spot. When really, that mark is where I wanted the edge of the dowel to line up. So really, I should have made a second mark underneath that one that was half of the width of the dowel, or just lined up the edge of the jig to the marked line, which is what I did for the rest of the legs. Thankfully, I planned on just painting over the whole thing with a solid color and not staining it, so I just cut a small piece of dowel and then glued that in to plug up that hole. A quick sand over that and you would have never known I messed up. So go through and drill all the holes, and then it's time to glue everything up. Squirt some glue into the inside ends of the short dowel pieces and use a hammer or mallet to tap the dowel pins in. Make sure you're using the edges that you marked as the inside edges first. You'll see in a sec that I messed this up. Add more glue to the ends and then press them into the sides of the short dowels. So mine was fitting together strangely, and then I realized that one of my dowel pieces was flipped around the wrong way, so I had the outside edge connecting to the side of one of the short dowel pieces. Thankfully, the glue hadn't dried yet, so I just pulled it apart and then fixed it. I had to add another wood pin to the other end and then fit that piece together correctly. Glue the remaining pins into the long leg pieces. Add more glue to the edges and then fit those into the short dowel pieces. Let the glue dry completely and then test fit the top. And actually mine just barely didn't fit, so I had to use a box cutter to cut away a little bit of the wood on each leg piece. I probably could have just sanded it down because it was such a small amount, but the box cutter was a little bit faster, and I was a little impatient at this point, so yeah. I ended up cutting off maybe 1/16 of an inch off of each side, and then paint it, or stain it, whichever you decide. I chose spray paint in this champagne gold color. I actually wasn't happy with this color initially. I wanted more of a traditional like yellowy gold color, but actually the champagne gold goes really well with the marble top. Once dry, stick the top back on and then put your plant on it. I cannot wait to get a new pot for this guy. It's currently sitting in the plastic pot that came with it from the store. I'm considering doing a DIY rope pot basket thing for it, but I don't know. What do you guys think? I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like, and if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. Hopefully next time my glasses will not be broken and distracting. Maybe I'll even have new ones. I post art videos every Tuesday and DIY videos every Thursday. And I'm also starting to stream live on Twitch. No set schedule yet, but I'm trying to get better at it. I have a lot of fun over there. It's really fun to get to chat with people live as I'm drawing, so if you're interested in that, then there's a link to that down below. And all of my social media actually, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, and then Twitch like I mentioned, all of that will be down below. If you enjoy my artwork and want to support me and own a piece of your own, I have a Society 6 and an imprint. So those will be down below as well. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next week.